Good morning, everyone. Oh, it was yesterday. Oh my gosh, we had yes, 79, almost 80 degrees yesterday here. It might have been 80 degrees, might have been 81, might have been 78. Who knows? But oh my gosh, I walked for the first time barefoot outside. Dug my feet. It just rained so much, which makes it great to weed your garden. And here things are already growing all over. Collected a whole bunch of wild weeding. Wood nettle is big time coming up, and the real fresh young stuff that comes up is delicious to eat. I put it in my soup. Made some flatbread that I saw a video of where they put garlic in it and greens. Some they put parsley in it. Well, I don't have parsley, so I put wood nettle in it and some wild mustard greens. And that's what one bed. I'm looking. Oh wow, there's a whole bunch of wild mustard greens growing here, right? Yes, I'm going. Well, and they're delicious. I mean, you taste them, and they got that tangy taste of just mustard greens, right? Yeah, they look a little different than the domestic ones, but delicious. So I got a whole little container full of wild mustard greens. Yes. Ugh, there you go. Man, it tastes great in anything. Actually, I looked at them going, ooh, I might make me some wild mustard green kimchi. Anywho, so there it is. So I was out there most of the day. My brother-in-law helped me bring more dirt over. I had plenty of manure already, and I needed more dirt. And there's so much over there, and there's one thing that dirt smells when it's clean and pure and just has yes, okay. How do you say? Disintegrated into a usable substance as dirt, soil. And it smells so good. Is that odd? It does. It smells so good. You can tell by the smell on how valuable that has become. Yes? Yeah. So anyway, that's what we did yesterday, and I'm very excited. I planted my potatoes, and what else did I plant? Well, mainly I got the beds ready again. I got the most gorgeous pea bed ever. I look at it, and peas haven't come up yet. That's normal. And it rained, so it's just right for seeds. What a day. And I thought, other people in our country, some not that, a few hundred miles away. A few hundred miles sounds like a lot to people in smaller countries, but here it's like a few hundred miles. That's a round trip, you know. If you go someplace, uh, they had blizzards. I mean, they're in. My brother-in-law told me that they said that it was the uh, they hadn't had blizzards like that, and the heavy snow since 1944. That's not something. Yeah. So here we are in 80 degrees weather, while others are experiencing, the coldest of the cold, right? Plus what goes with it, a lot of snow, ice. Yeah. Anyway, heavy snow makes great snowman, though. Snowball fights. Yes. Okay. It is what it is, right? Anywho, wonderful day. We had our farrier come over, which again, too, he happens to be one of the schoolmates of my youngest one. Now he's, married, daddy, and he's shoes horses. Right? Yes, so wonderful to see young people grow up, to see what they do, and he did a wonderful job taking care of the hooves of two of ours, and very grateful he had the time because that's a busy dude. Anywho, got all kinds of things done. Okay. there we are. Made use of a wonderful warm day, sunny. I think I even got a little sunburn. Yeah. Okay, today it's rainy, which is, well, it's not raining right now. This is a good day to go out and finish up what I started. So it's wonderful too. Okay, so, oh, I didn't mark this yesterday. Let's keep going. We're getting into other things here. Human skin diseases. Okay, that's Leviticus 13. It's interesting on how skin diseases more and more become widespread. And there are things, they're not just topical. They can come from the inside because our skin also works out toxins, okay? They come through your skin. If they're released in your body, if you're doing something, eating something, especially, as I said, there are certain, the Seneca Indian diet is one of them. I've done that one and I ended up with a rash everywhere. I went to the doctor and I'm going, after I was done, because man, what's going on here? You know, and they said, oh, you have poison ivy, poison ivy. I'm going, no, I don't. I'm not allergic to that. So it ended up, I had to start studying up on it myself because the doctors couldn't give me an answer. And it took about 3 weeks for it to go away. And it ended up that the Seneca Indian diet, and the way you do it is that in the end, with you drink orange juice or something acidic, then releases all the toxins you just got rid of out of your organs with the rest of the diet, then needs to go out somewhere, right? Yes, and the skin was one part of it. Some people just have more sensitive skin than others. Then, right? Well, what do you do? Well, don't go lay out in the sun, for example. Right? Don't go out into the woods without a long sleeve shirt on, for example. Right? Okay. But there are plants, for example, one that's just regarded as a weed, a very pesky weed. I mean, it's got a root and it just keeps growing. It's just like it's everywhere. Is yellow dock or just dock, okay? And with the root, you can make a salve, and it's really amazing for your skin. It's amazing for your skin. I added in my ointment, I added some plantain. I don't think it matters if you use the common plantain or the European one. Yeah, they look a little different. And what else did I add to that? I added some more things to it. It became a really amazing ointment. Yes. Well, anyway. Also, I make a pine salve as well with resin from pine trees. Yeah? And that too. It's an amazing skin healer. Okay. It just is. Not for open sores, but if it's just a rash, okay, yeah. And anyway, so let's read up what they have to say here about human skin diseases. Swelling, scabs, and discolorations. Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, if a swelling or scab or spot appears on someone's skin, which could develop into a contagious skin disease, like staph, that person must then be taken to the priest, either Aaron or one of his sons. Comfrey is an amazing herb for staph infections, or to draw out. Comfrey is an amazing thing for your skin. It's a topical one mainly. Now, again, though I don't tolerate many pharmaceutical things or any kind of drugs now in my system, including antibiotics, I have no problems on eating comfrey, which, in small doses, of course, but for some people, that's a big no-no. Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. But as a topical thing, comfrey is an amazing plant. Absolutely amazing plant. draws out impurities, draws out infections, and yeah, that's all I have to say. That I mean, it's an amazing plant. Yeah. And guess what? In Europe, it's a banned plant that if one finds it, you have to pull it out. And here in the United States, you can't. Yeah, I don't. I've looked online. You can't. You can't find it online to get it. You have to literally know someone that has the plant because it can be somewhat detrimental to animals if they eat it as well. Which again, if an animal has enough room to roam, they're not going to eat poisonous plants. As has been my experience. But yeah, it's an amazing plant and it's being banned everywhere, right? Why? Okay. Anywho. So, take them to Aaron. The priest will examine the disease on the skin. If the hair on the diseased part has turned white, or if the disease bites into the skin disease is contagious. Oh, I did not know that about the hair. Oh. Bites into the skin. The skin, okay. And after examination, the priest will declare the person unclean. Contagious. But if there is a white spot on the skin without any visible depression of the skin or whitening of the hair, the priest will isolate the sick person for 7 days. What if they're not? So if they're unclean, what did he do with them then? On the 7th day, he will examine the person, and if he observes that the disease persists though without spreading over the skin, he will isolate the person for further 7 days and examine him again on the 7th. If he finds that the disease has faded and has not spread over the skin, the priest will declare the person clean. This was merely a scab. Once he has washed his clothing, he will be clean. That's interesting. It doesn't say anything about the treatment, just what it is, but no treatment. Okay. All right, this tells us something, right? Oh, you know what that just reminds me of? Oh, I don't know if you guys got this. Can't mention it on here, right? We're going to get in trouble. But, okay. But if the scab spreads over the skin after the sick person has been examined by the priest and declared clean, then he will let himself be examined again by the priest. After examining him and certifying the spread of the scab over the skin, the priest will declare him unclean. It is a contagious skin disease. All right. So this is more about figuring out what is what when something suddenly starts to go wrong, right? At that time, I'm sure they had people who knew about how to treat certain problems, or did they not? Was that not something they did at that time? But you're sent to the priests, who then I'm assuming that the Levites, Aaron and his sons and the rest of his clan were also proficient in medicine. Healers. Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't say anything about the treatment. I'm assuming there is treatment. Would take too long? Well, gosh, dear me, to go into detail about everything else. Why not this one? That's the one I'm really interested in. Okay. B. Cases of dormant skin disease. Someone who has a contagious skin disease must be taken to the priest. The priest will examine the sick person, and if he finds a whitish swelling with whitening of the hair and an ulcer forming on the skin, this is a dormant skin disease, and the priest will declare the person unclean. He will not isolate him. He is obviously unclean. Huh? I'm confused now. But if the disease spreads all through the skin, if it covers the person entirely from head to foot, so far as the priest can see, the priest will then examine the sick person, and if he finds that the skin disease covers his whole body, declare the sick person clean. Huh? Since it has all become white, he is clean. But as soon as an ulcer appears on him, he will be unclean. What? After examining the ulcer, the priest will declare him unclean. The ulcer is unclean. It is contagious. But if the ulcer becomes white again, the sick person will go to the priest. The priest will examine him, and if he finds that the disease has turned white, he will declare the sick person clean. He is clean. Okay, I think this is all. The clean and unclean here means something that can't be spread and something that can be spread, right? So it's an odd one in a way. I understand what they're saying here, but what kind of stuff did they deal with at that time? Again, okay, ulcers. When an ulcer appears on someone's skin and then gets better, and if then a white swelling or a reddish white spot forms on the same place, the sick person will show himself to the priest. You know what? I bet that had a lot to do with like smallpox, the plague, what other, scarlet fever, things that could wipe out a whole tribe, right? Yes? Yeah. So they already knew about that kind of stuff. So I think this is what this is all about. The priest will examine him, and if he finds a visible depression in the skin and a whitening of hair, he will declare the person unclean. This is a case of contagious skin disease breaking out in an ulcer. But he won't isolate people? Wait a minute, what did this say up here? He's obviously unclean. What the heck is this all about? This is so weirdly written. Okay, I'm a bit baffled, but so be it. This is a case of contagious skin disease breaking out in an ulcer. But if an examination, the priest finds neither white hair nor depression of the skin, but a fading of the affected part, he will isolate the sick person for 7 days. Why isolate people who are already healing? But the unclean, they're not being isolated. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not getting... Do I have this backwards here? If the disease has then spread over the skin, he will declare the person unclean. This is a case of contagious skin disease. Oh, catch it before it really breaks out. But if the spot has stayed where it was and has not spread, it is the scar of the ulcer, and the priest will declare the person clean. All right, whatever. Well, this is a whole lot different than I thought it was going to be, but hey, okay, this is not a medical book. The burns. If someone has a burn on the skin and an abscess, a reddish white or white spot forms on the burn, they are really obsessed with white spots. I'm assuming that is pus. They mean pus with that. Forms on the burn. The priest will then examine it. If he finds a whitening of the hair, always the whitening of the hair, or a visible depression of the mark on the skin, a depression. I'm trying to think. That looks like. A contagious disease has broken out in the burn. The priest will declare the sick person unclean. This is a contagious skin disease. If, on the other hand, the priest on examination does not find white hair on the mark or depression of the skin, but a fading of the mark, the priest will isolate the person for 7 days. Oh, because it hasn't broke out yet, but it could still. He will examine the person on the 7th day, and if the disease has spread over the skin, he will declare the sick person unclean. This is a case of contagious skin disease. If the mark has stayed where it was, and has not spread over the skin, but has faded instead, it was only a swelling due to the burn. The priest will declare the person clean. It is merely a burn scar. Okay. Man, we got a lot to go here. Diseases of the scalp and chin. If a man or a woman has a sore on the head or chin, the priest will examine the sore. And if he finds a depression visible in the skin with the hair on it yellow and thin, he will declare the sick person unclean. This is tinea, that is to say, a contagious skin disease of the head or chin. Yeah, I know what that is. I mean, let's see, it has another name here. Can't think of it right now. If on examining this case of tinea, the priest finds no visible depression in the skin and no yellow hair, he will isolate the person so affected for 7 days. He will examine the infected part on the 7th day, and if he finds that the tinea has not spread, that the hair on it is not yellow, and that there is no visible depression in the skin, the sick person will shave his hair off, all except the part affected with tinea. What? Oh. And the priest will again isolate him for 7 days. You shave off everything except for the part that has been affected. Okay, that would make sense if you don't want to shave something, then you have that laying around, or to aggravate the part further, it'll be easier to... Okay. This is not enough info for me here to actually really figure out. And I do know that most likely this chapter is to let us know on how there are ways to make sure things don't spread, right? And it seems like the one thing, you isolate people. But then if he does find, okay, well, that person's unclean, okay, do they automatically get isolated then, right? Yes? It doesn't say, hasn't really said, it's just, okay. But maybe they're also saying, okay, obviously then, right, that step will be taken even more so rigorously, right? Yes? I said, everything else is so detailed in many ways. He will examine the infected part on the 7th day, and if he finds that the tinea has not spread, that the hair on it is not yellow, that's why you don't shave that, and that there's no visible depression in the skin, the sick person will shave his hair off, all except the part affected with tinea, and the priest will again isolate him for 7 days. He will examine the infected part on the 7th day, and if he finds that it has not spread over the skin and that there is no visible depression of the skin, the priest will declare the sick person clean. After washing his clothes, the person will be clean. But if after this purification the tinea does spread over the skin, the priest will examine the person. If he finds that the tinea has indeed spread over the skin, the sick person is unclean, and there is no need to verify whether the hair is yellow. Whereas, if so far as he can see, the tinea is arrested and dark hair is beginning to grow on it, the sick person is cured. He's clean, and the priest will declare him clean. That's interesting. So now about the hair, so you shave it all off where you're not sick. Don't worry about the parts that you are infected. Right? And then as the hair grows back, he can tell, everything's still good everywhere else. And that's a good one, right? Yes? Okay. So they already had hospitals at that time? Isolated. I wonder how often that would happen. I guess it would have to be a pretty severe case of whatever, or, right? We're talking about 1 million people there, maybe more even by now, right? So, I don't know. I have no idea. Okay. A rash. If spots break out on the skin of a man or woman, and if these spots are white, the priest will examine them. If he finds that the spots are of a dull white, this is a rash that has broken out on the skin. The sick person is clean. Oh, okay. Out of a dull white, this is a rash that has broken out on the skin. Oh, that's not coming from the inside. It's most likely due to a plant or something. That's what that tells me. Loss of hair. If someone loses the hair of the scalp, this is baldness of the scalp, but the person is clean. Oh. If he loses hair off the front of the head, this is baldness of the forehead, but the person is clean. If, however, a reddish-white sore appears on scalp or forehead, a contagious skin disease has broken out on the scalp or forehead. The priest will examine it, and if he finds a reddish-white swelling on scalp or forehead looking like a contagious skin disease, the person has such a disease. He's unclean. The priest will declare him unclean. He has a contagious skin disease of the head. So again, when they're not sure, they isolate the person to make sure. So I'm assuming again that the ones that are, okay, this is a clear case of a contagious skin disease, this and that could be spread to others, then I'm assuming they're automatically isolated, right? And either they make it or they don't. I gotcha. Okay. I don't know. Doesn't say. The law governing cases of contagious skin diseases. Oh. Anyone with a contagious skin disease will wear torn clothing and disordered hair and will cover the upper lip and shout. Are we talking about leprosy here as well? Oh, never even thought of that while reading through all this. Oh, that was a big thing at that time. Unclean, unclean. As long as the disease lasts, such a person will be unclean, and being unclean will live alone and live outside the camp. Oh, here we go. Oh. Gosh, no one to take care of them. Oh, well, maybe they took care of each other. Okay. Infections of clothing. When a piece of clothing is infected with mold, M-O-U-L-D, I'm assuming, all right, be it woolen or linen clothing, linen or woolen fabric or covering or leather or anything made of leather, if the spot on the clothing, leather, fabric, covering, or object made of leather is a greenish or reddish color, it is a disease to be shown on the priest. Oh, it is a disease to be shown to the priest. The priest will examine the infection and isolate the object for 7 days. Oh, wow, they knew about mold stuff at that time? Huh, that's interesting. If on the 7th day he observes that the infection has spread on the clothing, fabric, covering, leather, or object made of leather, leather is a big, we've had this problem here. I have very little made of leather here because in the humidity here, and we don't have central air, leather starts to mold. Yes, and it's so. Yep. Okay. I guess one could just keep it. Even that, you keep it in a tin and even an airtight container sometimes doesn't do it. Well, anyway, at that time they didn't have those kind of things. Whatever it may be, this is a contagious disease, and the object is unclean. He will burn this clothing, fabric, linen, or woolen covering, or leather object, whatever it may be, on which the infection has appeared. For this is a contagious disease which must be destroyed by fire. It does. Mold attacks your lungs big time. But if, on examination, the priest finds that the infection has not spread on the clothing, fabric, covering, or leather object, whatever it may be, he will order the infected object to be washed and will isolate it again for a period of 7 days. After the washing, he will examine the infection, and if he finds that there's no change in its appearance, even though it has not spread, the article is unclean. Oh. Oh. You will burn it. It is infected through and through. Oh, okay. But if on examination the priest finds that the infection has diminished after washing, he will tear it out of the clothing, leather, fabric, or covering. But if the infection reappears on the same clothing, fabric, covering, or leather object, whatever it may be, this means that the infection is active. You will burn whatever is infected. The clothing, fabric, covering, or leather object, whatever it may be, from which the infection disappears after being washed, will be clean after it has been washed a second time. Such is the law governing disease in a linen or woolen garment, a fabric or covering or leather object, whatever it may be, when it is a question of declaring them clean or unclean. And that is the end of 13. Holy cannoli. Well, one thing I think we've just learned here is that it isn't just a body, a human body, or even an animal body that can spread disease that can be quite devastating, but also fabric, clothing, leather, right? Okay. Well, at that time, well, of course, at this time, well, leather is probably most likely, most leather out there treated differently than at that time, right? Yes? Yeah. So what else, what all could stay in leather at that time? Or even in linen, right? Which comes from whom, right? It's all animal stuff, right? Yes? It all comes from the animals. Well, anyway, so there it is. Well, interesting. I thought it was going to be a little bit different than that, but there you go. It's all about the clean and the unclean things. And this was, I guess, a way to protect the rest of the population. Right? Okay. It's seems interesting to me that that was taken under consideration, right? Yes? I wonder how the people who were sick were treated. Well, if you were declared unclean, done, no question there, then you were sent outside of the camp. You had to wear ragged clothes. You had to make sure that you show that you carry something that's unclean and is infectious. Wow. I wonder how people would deal with a rule like that now here, right? Yes? Okay. And it sounds like you were pretty much on your own. You either made it or you didn't. Interesting. Which reminds me of something, which I'm going to share just a little bit about. There was a few months ago, the VIP care for elderly was announced on how, and I looked at that and I got, wait a second. For elderly people, there's a lot of stuff already in place. It is, again, it's in place. The money is there. It can be used. Who's not doing their job when it comes to that, to all that? Right? And it seemed, again, it's a political agenda. Whatever. They got, okay. And I looked at that and I thought, why are you trying to make yourself look good about this? Pretending that there needs to be greater care for the elderly because it is there. It is the doctors, the nurses, the institutions where elderly are being put, this and that, where the people are working and making their money aren't doing their job. A lot of them do. Sadly, there's too many who don't and get away with it. Yes? Okay. Then I thought, why would the elderly suddenly become a target for that? Well, because they can still vote, right? Yes? So I went in and I said, we already have a great healthcare system for elderly people if the people would be doing their job out there who are taking care of the elderly, right? And decide, is it really a good idea to give a 80, 90-year-old a surgery that most likely they might not survive? Or would it be better to just, okay, let's deal with this in another way because you are coming to the end of your life. Right? Okay, just saying. So man, that comment. And I said, what about the children? I know of enough parents who have sick children. Really sick. Something that most likely they have to deal with for the rest of their lives, and they're not getting the help. They're losing their homes. They lose their jobs because they want to be with the child who's really sick, this and that, and what? Sit there. I know of the story firsthand myself. A mother can't afford bus fare. Can't anymore. Right? With a sick child in the hospital. I know in other countries when you get sick you end up, it's the same here, with unbelievable bills. Right? Well, anyway, even though you have insurance, okay, I'm just saying, I couldn't quite understand why politicians would use something like that, right? And then just address one part of the population and disregard. How about children should always get 100% the best care that any president around the world or king or queen would get? That's my opinion. For free. That's my opinion. Yes, but that's not there. Oh boy, did I get chewed out. Big time. I got chewed out big time for something that I clearly explained. It's already there. This isn't about, but what about? Huh? Why do people have to be out there with buckets collecting for a children's hospital? Collecting money for a children's hospital. Huh? I'm just saying. I don't know. So, yeah, people can understand, can take this as an affront and go, oh, so you don't want the elderly be taken care of? That they already are. They should be. The programs, everything is in place. It's all there. It's not there for the children.
Here's your
anyway. Okay, thank you, dear. Now I gotta go. God's love and blessings always. May He protect you, and I will talk to you all another time. And if you come across a certain comment, you go, wow, that was kind of what? Think, where is the person's heart to mind when it comes to all that? Right? And dig a little bit deeper before you put a comment out like, I'm the worst of the worst now because I told the truth. Okay. And I will talk to you all another time.